Within days of Charlie Kirk's assassination, Candace Owens began suggesting the most polarizing conspiracy of her career, a cover-up involving billions, Israel, and the federal government. She claimed that the official story of what happened to Charlie is a complete lie and that the suspect was framed. And over the last 4 weeks, her claims only continue to grow, eventually even seeming to suggest that Charlie's organization could have had something to do with it. Now, if she's right, she just exposed one of the most disturbing scandals in all of American politics. But if she's wrong, and she only spread unfounded rumors, the damage isn't just to the conservative movement or to the organization that Charlie dedicated his life to building. It's also to the very people that Charlie loved the most. This all started just days after the assassination, while Charlie's wife and his team were planning his memorial. Candace started making some strong claims that a lot of people thought wasn't necessary and urged her to at least wait until people had a chance to grieve. Some even accused her of hijacking grief for personal gain based only on rumors. However, given how confident and determined that she was, it seemed like she must have had some really strong evidence. And if she did have damning proof of a cover-up, then you could at least understand why she felt the need to expose it right away. So what was this evidence that made it so urgent for her to bring this forth at this time? Well, Candace's first major claim came just 2 days after the assassination, after Bibi Netanyahu said this on Fox News.
Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago. One of my greatest joys as a Christian, he said, is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews to protect Judeo-Christian civilization.
And in response to this, Candace said that Netanyahu severely misrepresented the contents, that he was lying about it, demanding that he publish the entire letter and let the world read Charlie in his own words.
I know for a fact that he is misrepresenting some things that happened there towards the end. But I am calling upon Bibi Netanyahu, the dear friend to Charlie Kirk, to publish the letter's entire contents. Like, don't start with just 2 sentences. Publish the entire thing. You're holding it. I'm saying you're severely misrepresenting the contents.
And just days later, Charlie's organization, TPUSA, released the letter. The full letter showed Charlie describing his passion for the Holy Land, how Israel was losing the social media battle, which would result in less military support from America, and Charlie's desire to help. Now, to be fair, Charlie did express some frustrations toward Israel in the last few months. But the letter itself doesn't match her claim that Netanyahu severely misrepresented its contents. In fact, what Netanyahu said came from the very first sentence of the letter. But just a few days later, she went even further. She claimed that billionaire Bill Ackman staged an intervention for Charlie in the Hamptons, insinuating that he threatened Charlie, offered him money, and pressured him to change his views on Israel.
An intervention was staged by Bill Ackman because Charlie's rational thoughts about Israel were a no-no. Bill Ackman was very upset and threats were made.
Now, this would be explosive if true, but others who were there said that no such thing happened and they called it a rumor. And in addition, Ackman himself released WhatsApp messages between him and Charlie from after the meeting, which didn't look like blackmail. They read like cordial exchanges, with Charlie even agreeing to meet again. So, on the surface, this doesn't seem to match the picture of threats and coercion as Candace alleged. And once again, as far as I know, at the time of recording on October 5th, Candace never released any direct evidence proving that any threats or coercion happened. So within the first week after the assassination, we already had multiple serious claims made without receipts. And given how skeptical all of us have become with the government, and not without good reason, it's no wonder why so many people were quick to accept that she might be onto something. And things only kept heating up from there. On September 26th, she went even further, this time focusing on the accused shooter, Tyler Robinson. Candace suggested that the alleged shooter was not just innocent, but was being framed by federal authorities. She said that Robinson had never even stepped foot on campus, his dad never turned him in, the suicide story was fabricated, and that the government is lying about everything except for the fact that it was his gun. Now, if this is true, that would mean that everyone from the police, to the prosecutors, to the coroner, to the courts, to the FBI, TPUSA, Robinson's own family, and more would all have had to agree to this large and elaborate conspiracy. And that's not to say that this is impossible, but it's the kind of claim that demands ironclad receipts. And up until this point, they haven't come. Candace also went on to say that the text messages released by the government were obviously fake, and she supported that claim by saying this.
Turns out, you're going to be shocked, that he doesn't actually use words like vehicle, which should come as no surprise to anyone that has a brain. There's old footage of Tyler Robinson that is now circulating from a car accident that he had. And during the discussion with the officer that showed up, Tyler certainly refers to it as his car, not his vehicle, because that's how most English speakers refer to a car.
Your mom's on her way?
Yeah, she's gonna be a minute. She's gotta shuttle over from where she's at to her car and then drive over.
Gotcha.
Okay, now to be fair to Candace, a lot of people agree with her that the text messages seem strangely written, and she's not at all the only one who's skeptical about their authenticity. But here's the issue for Candace. She didn't release the full footage in which Robinson says this.
As I get into the intersection, he bolts. There was a vehicle in the lane.
And things only get worse when she says,
That's something that you say? I'm just going to go outside to my vehicle. I left something in my vehicle.
But as Milk Bar TV points out, this is more common than you might think.
And Nick was particularly asking him to determine who owned a white vehicle, and everyone locally had looked at this vehicle, and suddenly a president gets shot in a moving vehicle. November 22nd, 1963, JFK was shot. President JFK was shot sitting alongside his wife in a vehicle.
And since then, her claims have only gotten more bold as she's now turned her attention to Charlie's organization, TPUSA. But before we get to that, let me tell you why I specifically wanted Ground News to sponsor this video today. If you pull up the story about how Candace is making the $300,000 bet on the fact that she thinks that the French president's wife is a man, you can quickly see how both sides are covering it. And what stood out to me was the fact that out of all of the outlets covering the story, 61% of them lean left with an emphasis on the claim that this is somehow a new theme in the MAGA movement, and only 28% lean right with an emphasis on Candace claiming that free speech is in danger. But the truth is, without Ground News, you'd never realize just how differently the story is being spun depending on where you read it. Ground News gathers articles from over 50,000 sources and shows you how they're being covered across the political spectrum. That way you can see the full picture. And instead of scrolling 10 sites and still getting a slanted picture, you can actually see how the narratives are being shaped side by side, which helps you to become more objective. And this isn't just my opinion. A Duke University study on polarization found that when people are exposed to the kinds of blind spots that Ground News highlights, it actually moderated their views and reduced polarization. So if you want to try it out, go to groundnews.com/whatdoyoumeme or scan the QR code on the screen and get 40% off of unlimited access with the Vantage plan, which is the same plan that I use every day. All right, now let's get back to how Candace's attention has shifted onto the people and the organization that Charlie loved the most. Over the last 4 weeks, after implying that behind Kirk's assassination could have been Bill Ackman, Benjamin Netanyahu, unnamed Jewish donors, an unnamed rabbi, the investigators, the medical staff, the FBI, the court prosecutors, an underground communist B death cult, and so on, she's since moved her attention over to perhaps the most potentially offensive of all, the very organization that Charlie founded, which is now run by his wife.
Because I'm very aware of what's going on, okay? And I don't know how the executives over at Turning Point USA sleep at night. Okay. I don't know how you can present yourselves as a Christian organization and not be dedicating yourself to the truth. And don't try to say, well, wait until the memorial event before we start looking into who murdered.
And then she gave them an ultimatum.
I'm going to challenge Turning Point USA executives to issue a very clean statement saying that I am lying if this is not true. Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat?
So she now alleges that she not only knew that Kirk was planning to abandon Israel, but also that he was planning to reunite with her on stage, and seems to imply that those things were somehow connected to his death just 2 days later. Okay, editing John here from the feature. It looks like Candace did post a video last night, and today is the 7th, so she posted on the 6th. Some alleged receipts to verify what she's saying here. As of right now, there's no dates or anything on the timestamp, so we can't confirm, but I did want to be fair and make sure that I mentioned that. And on September 25th, she also posted a video about how Charlie requested an audit of TPUSA just 1 week before his death, with the obvious implication being that someone inside of TPUSA could have had Kirk assassinated in order to hide the money. However, there hasn't been any direct evidence or leaked documents connecting the audit to any sinister activity or Kirk's assassination, and the COO of Turning Point even said that TPUSA does a yearly audit and always has, and that Candace just made something up. So it's at this point that people have started to notice a pattern. The issue people have is not her asking questions. Over the years, we've been given lots of reasons to be skeptical about what the government tells us sometimes, so there's nothing wrong with asking questions, and some of Candace's questions are completely fair. But the problem that a lot of her fans and her critics have is that they don't see her as just asking questions, but manufacturing one conspiracy after another based on endless and baseless speculation.
She's always like, I got receipts. Where are the receipts?
I have all these receipts, but I'm not going to publish them.
Now, there is no evidence other than taking Candace's word.
She keeps saying she has receipts, but there's never receipts that come out.
And a lot of her fans have been saying the same thing. The amount of claims that she's made in videos and posts without giving any receipts would take hours to show, as there seems to be several new ones being made nearly every day.
Answer the questions, and I will publish the truth.
And this wouldn't be a problem if she wasn't claiming to be a journalist who's doing an investigation. Good journalism requires for you to provide evidence along with your claims, and the more controversial and accusatory the claim is, the stronger that the evidence should be. But too often, she doesn't provide any direct evidence, tells people to just trust her, or that she has a source that she can't reveal. But even if she can't release the sources so that way the world can decide how credible that her sources are, she can still release the emails or the messages that she got from the source and censor any personal information. And good journalism means that you can be proven right or wrong, but Candace's pattern makes that nearly impossible. She'll strongly connect dots between people or events, strongly insinuate an accusation, and then later deny ever having said it. For example, she says things like this.
Was definitely on the brink of changing some of his perspectives. And I can tell you factually, Charlie was praying the rosary. Charlie was going to mass. One of my last conversations with Charlie was me joking with him saying, just make the last step, speaking about Mary. And typically when those steps start taking place, you stop referring to yourself, as I did, as a Judeo-Christian.
And then later says that she has no idea where people got that idea.
Again, I have no idea who said he was converting to Catholicism. I feel like it's like intentionally misrepresenting what was said.
She'll also say how she never claimed that Israel was responsible for what happened to Charlie, but constantly makes statements connecting his death to Israel. And maybe even more importantly, being a good journalist requires for you to follow the evidence where it leads, even if that means contradicting your previously held assumptions. But usually when she's provided with evidence that contradicts her claims, she'll either ignore it or claim that it's fake, meaning that there's no way for her to be proven wrong. It's kind of like saying, heads I win and tails you lose. The game is rigged either way. As the quartering put it, her journalism method seems to essentially be 1. Make a wild claim, provide zero evidence, and instead challenge someone else to disprove it. If they ignore it, you claim victory, and if they disprove it, then you get a claim that the evidence is fake. And now that this has been going on for about 4 weeks straight, we're starting to see the fallout from it, and it's not pretty. Netanyahu had to post a video making it clear that he and Israel had nothing to do with Charlie Kirk's murder. TPUSA's leadership and staff was dragged into a public ultimatum while grieving, forced to choose between engaging publicly or looking invasive. Tyler Robinson's trial risks being complicated by viral theories about planted DNA and fabricated confessions, and all it takes is just one single person on the jury to be influenced by Candace's unsubstantiated conspiracy that he was framed, and then Tyler walks away free, even if he's guilty and even if there's a mountain of evidence against them. And the serious insinuations against TPUSA could threaten the source of income for Charlie's widow and his children. And beyond that, Charlie's legacy risks being rewritten, not to mention that the organization that he dedicated his entire life to building is now at risk of having its reputation tarnished, all based on damaging claims without any direct and credible evidence. Think about this. If Candace Owens is wrong, imagine the damage that has been caused from these rumors. And if she's right, then she should provide evidence to substantiate these serious implications. But even if you put aside whether or not Candace is right or wrong, this is what happens when you make strong claims without evidence. Real reputations take damage, real organizations are destabilized, and grieving families watch their loved one's death turned into a battleground for speculation. So, at the time of recording, after 4 weeks, not one of her central claims has direct and credible evidence to verify what she's saying. And maybe some details in the future will emerge, but right now, she's provided mostly rumors rather than receipts, and rumors aren't harmless. They're unconfirmed stories that might contain pieces of truth, but lack factual certainty. We saw in a past video where I talked about the false rumor that my friend Frank Turek was somehow signaling Charlie's shooter. This was based on pure speculation, but it spread everywhere online and could have led to a really terrifying outcome, which is why scripture equates rumors with gossip, strongly warning against spreading them. They rarely highlight good deeds and are almost always negative and damaging to others. And for those of us that are Christians, we should be extremely cautious with how we engage with others and the information that we spread online. These sorts of rumors can distract from mourning and honoring victims. They can turn tragedy into speculation instead of compassion and quarrels instead of witness. Now, we aren't always going to get it right, and sometimes we are going to make mistakes, but we should at least show a genuine effort in trying to get it right and be slow to assume other people's motives. Because after all, if accusations don't require proof, then no one is safe from slander. Alright, thanks so much for watching to the end of this video. And if you like this message and you want to help to support what we do in our ministry, there's a link down below to our nonprofit, and your support means way more than you could ever imagine. Alright, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.